Okay, everybody, we are back outside. It is the next morning. It is a dreary, rainy day. But anyhow, so this is our solution, and this is why it's hard to predict what something is going to do, or when somebody sends you something, to give them an idea or a guesstimation of a yield. Okay, the majority of this was, now you saw earlier, yesterday when I did this, that was the little bit of foils that I had removed from the processor pins, and then the foils from the other pins, and then we had these two bottles of basically ram and finger card foils that were manually removed. I do not think that, and I ain't no doubt about it now, that they were not removed with acid and then dried out. They were obviously either scraped off or a soldering iron was used, and it was used heavily, because if this had just been foils, this solution should have been golden, maybe with a touch of green. But as you can see, it is once again almost black. I actually have to hit it again because with some more nitric acid, I let it sit all night on the warmer, and there is still, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in the camera, but there is still gold foils in the bottom. So we're going to have to hit this with some more nitric acid and finish dissolving those foils. But that is a very heavy copper contamination. So even though there was a lot of foils, we had almost looks like almost 27 grams of foils. That's why it's impossible to give an estimation. I actually did a foil refine for a guy a while back, and the foils yielded about a half a gram for every 4 grams of foil, but they were clean. So in other words, they were clean foils. They had been acid removed, so the copper was off of them, and stuff like that. I have no idea what the yield will be on this, because it is highly, highly contaminated with copper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish getting this dissolved off, where I can actually stay out here with it today and watch it so we don't get a boil over. And then we are going to filter it and drop the gold out of it. It's going to be a very fine powder, so it may take even a day or two for the powder to settle out. So we'll get back at you guys in a bit. Okay guys, I just wanted to show you that our reaction has slowed to just about nothing. I just put about 5 or 6 more drops of nitric in there, and we're getting a tiny, tiny, tiny reaction. Our solution has gone over and lost its brown color and just gone over to a deep, deep green. So that tells me that most of the copper has, went into solution. Our foils, I think, are pretty much gone, but I think I'll leave this go for another, I don't know, just maybe another hour on a little bit below low heat, and just to be safe, and then we'll get it filtered off and see what we get out of it. So we'll be back at you in a bit. Okay everybody, we are ready to go. I'm actually not going to use the vacuum filter on this. I've got to be in and out back here for a while today, so it doesn't really matter how long this is going to take, because we're still not going to probably even get to the drop till later, and then get to actually recovering the powder till I get off work next time. So I'm going to go ahead and start this filtering. Okay everybody, we are actually almost to the end of our filter. We're going to keep rinsing this. You can still see there's some green in there until we get absolutely no color. But like I was talking about earlier, about not knowing what something's going to yield, or having, just because one batch of foils yield this and another batch of foils is going to yield the same, that's not how it is. Right now, if you can just look in here, that stuff is not floating. That is how much trash, which is fiberboard or whatever, from scraping the foils off, of the finger, the ram fingers, or the, fingerboard fingers, or whether they did it with a saw. I don't know how she did it exactly. It looks to me like they're scraped, because we've got a lot of lot of fiberboard in there. But when that's done, I'll lay that out and show you. And all that has weight. I mean, you have to take all this stuff into consideration when you're doing this. But anyhow, back to what we're doing. We are actually going to rinse this and keep rinsing this down, all this stuff down, until we get a clear drop coming out the bottom. Because there is still gold in here, and we want every bit of the gold out. So I will get back at you when I'm going to open this up and show you just how much undissolvable trash was in that. Alright, we'll be back at you in a bit. Okay. Now I know there was a couple of centers, cutouts of filters, but still that doesn't account for all of that. Most of that, or a lot of that, what's binding it together is the filter paper, but most of this is fiberboard. So that is basically rinsed clean. There's no color left in it, but that's what that is. That is fiberboard. Normally I keep these, but I know that there's no color left in this at all, so we're just going to go ahead and toss all that. And we are going to get set up to do our drop. So we will be back at you in a few minutes. Okay guys, so we've got about 300, there was about 300 milliliters of solution. With a little bit of rinse, it's about 325. I've got 14 grams of sodium metabisulfite here, and then I've got 250 milliliters of distilled water and about 25 milliliters of muriatic acid. I'm going to go ahead and put about half of that in here and warm it up and dissolve my sodium metabisulfite. So I'm going to throw it over on the warmer for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of this to my solution. Make sure that our nitric is null and void. Excuse me. Sodium metabisulfite will make you sneeze if you get a whiff of it. I'm not seeing too much reaction. A little more. I'm going to make sure, there it goes. I want to make sure that my urea isn't bad, because I've had that happen before. And you can use urea to do this, or you can use sulfamic acid. People say sulfamic acid is better, I guess, because it creates sulfuric acid and you end up with dropping your lead and stuff out without having to add any. But right now we're not concerned with that, because this is going to be a dirty drop anyway. Okay guys, we are ready to go. I'm going to give this a little stir. Set that back, and we are going to go ahead and hit it with our sodium metabisulfite. Stir it up. Not seeing too much going on yet. I don't know if I like that or not. It may take a few minutes. It's a little cool out here. But if there was a lot of gold, we should have got a pretty significant drop right off the bat.
And we're getting a little change now. Gosh, nothing like I expected though.
There it goes. And it is a very, I can tell you right now, a very fine powder. I can actually see it on the stick. So it is going to take forever for this to settle out.
Okay guys, it has been about an hour since we did our drop. I am seeing a little bit of, trailers running down the side, some gold powder running down the side at the bottom. We're starting to get a separation line, so that's good, but it's going to take a long time for this to settle because we had so much copper in it. We're going to get it's going to be a really fine powder. So hopefully we'll get a decent little amount out of it that we can re-refine it. So we will get back to you when this settles out and separates out and we see what our powder looks like. So we'll get back at you later on. Okay everybody, we are back inside. I just spared you all the the siphoning off and drying of this. I mean, you saw we had a heavy contaminated copper solution. There is our gold. I did off camera boil it in hydrochloric acid for a while. I'm not going to re-refine this. It is probably close to pure. It's not going to be 99.9, but it's probably pretty close to pure. And the reason I'm not going to re-refine it is, even though in the bottom of this beaker it looks like quite a bit, it is balled up, and it's about 0.68 grams. So I definitely know that those foils were either scraped off or taken off with a soldering iron. I'm going to have to pause and change my battery, so let me get right back to you in just a second. I was actually really hoping that these were going to yield, a lot more than they did, but they didn't, and that's just it. You just never know. I mean, we have a pretty good quality of gold for not having to re-refine it yet. I did let it boil in hydrochloric acid for, I don't know, about a half an hour, I guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and melt that. We're going to go outside and we're going to melt this little bead up, and we're just going to give that all to D, to Scrapper DH. She donated a bunch of stuff to the channel, some pins, several boards, and stuff like that. So there's not enough here for me to, take a cut of it. If we would have got 3 or 4 grams, I would have taken, maybe, I don't know, a gram or 3/4 of a gram of gold. But I want her to get something out of this. And I mean, and this is just too, it's not enough to really re-refine, so it's probably going to be about 23 karat gold, somewhere in there. But she can just hang on to that, and down the road we can, send it back again whenever she has more stuff to send and re-refine it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and get outside. We're going to melt our little bit of dried gold powder into a little bead for her, and that'll probably wrap up this video. So let's get outside and get that done, and we'll be right back at you. Okay everybody, we are outside. We are going to go ahead and put our gold powder in here. And don't be discouraged by this, and especially you, Scrapper DH. Don't be discouraged by this. It takes a lot of material to make stuff. I mean, and to end up with anything, especially today, I mean, so, a little something is better than no something. And we also have learned from this. Now, I know it's about 8 to 1. And again, this is only an estimate. I mean, things can change really quick, and just because, I've got 8 to 1 out of foils before that were recovered, using AP, doesn't mean the next batch is going to be that. But a pretty good reference is about 8 grams to 1 if you have acid removed your foils. Okay, apparently this is the second time I've done this. I wasn't for sure how these were removed, until after I took a look at, some of the boards and whatever, and you can see that they're either soldering iron removed or they were scraped off, which means the copper came with them. And that's about 30 to 1. So you actually need about 30 grams, maybe a little bit more of foils if you have removed them, taking off all the metal that's underneath them. And now if you do it with acid, it's about 8 to 1. And again, that's a guess. It could be 7 to 1, it could be 10 to 1. I mean, that's just what around the numbers that I have found. So we're going to go ahead and get this melded into a bead, and I'm going to hush through this because of the noise of the torch. So we'll be back at you in a bit. I'm not seeing a lot of discoloration in the dish, so I do believe we got a pretty high purity button here. We'll see how much we lost in the melt, because you can see we have a tiny bit of color in there, so we did lose a little bit of something in there. But I can tell by our color that we have a pretty nice little bead. Let me put it in my hand. I don't want to drop it because I'll never find it. So we got a fairly nice little bead of gold there. And judging by size, I would say it's around a half, maybe a little over a half of a gram. But we'll go put it in the pickle pot and we will weigh it up and see what we got. And I know, Dee, that was a lot of work. A lot of work went into that. But you know what? You kept a half a gram or more of gold out of the landfill, and that's what it's about. I mean, I've had a lot of people say, oh, it's not worth the time, it's not worth the effort. What hobby is worth the time or effort? Yeah, there are some hobbies out there where you're going to make money back. This happens to be one of them. You're going to get a little bit of return for your effort. But there's many hobbies out there that you get nothing back. I mean, you pour your money into it and you get virtually nothing back but the satisfaction of doing it. Well, for those that say this isn't worth doing, every time I get even half that much gold, that's gold that's not getting buried in the future mine, which the future mine are our landfills. Because in 1,000 years, the amount of stuff that we've thrown away, they're going to be hitting them landfills, because that's where the money's going to be at. That's where the new mining will be done. So anyway, guys, we're going to get back inside. We'll drop that in a pickle pot, and we will see what we ended up with. So we'll be right back at you. Okay, everybody, here we are. We are back inside. There is her Scrapper, North Carolina Scrapper DH's little bead of gold. And again, D, like I said, don't be discouraged. Just, it takes a lot of stuff to get anything. So just keep on keeping on. I mean, I remember when I was going to, when I started, the very first time I started scrapping, and I had a little tiny, like one of those medicine bottles like that full of pins. And I mean, it seemed like it took forever to get it. And, and the next thing you know, hey, I had a couple pounds, and I had a couple pounds of this and a couple pounds of that. Anyway, let's see where we're at. All right, that's about right. It's just, it's the air movement that's making it move. I would say it's probably 0.69, 0.68. And it's going to be minimum, I would say, would be about 22 or 23 karat. It may even be more than that. It looks to me like it's really close to pure, because I did boil it off in the hydrochloric acid. So there's her little bead, and like I said, we're just gonna give that all to her because she donated all that other stuff to the channel. So, and there's, you know, like if she'd have got 3-4 grams or something like that, 5 grams, yeah, I might have took a little cut of that gold. But with this amount, I'm more than happy with what she donated. So guys, there it is. This is going to wrap up this video. NC Scrapper DH got herself a little bead of gold, and I got myself a few videos. So all is good. So everybody have a good one, and we will see you all in the next video.